seen something like me.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Walking with Walfinch, the Vegas edition.
Yeah.
I'm joined here today by Tracy Penrose, the CEO of Just Between Friends. Nice to have you, Tracy.
It's a pleasure to walk with you this morning.
Yeah, what a great way to start the convention, right?
I know, sunshine, lots of people,
Yeah.
It's awesome.
No, fantastic. So Tracy, you've got a phenomenal franchise journey, and I find it really interesting, particularly because it's similar to my journey from franchisee to franchisor.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if you could just tell me a little bit about that. You know, what is Just Between Friends? How did you get into it? And how did this all happen?
Sure. Before we get to Just Between Friends, I'll tell you that it all started with a cookie. And my son, who is now 29 years old, when he was just about 2, one Christmas, a family friend of ours gave him this ginormous cookie, and it was a big, beautifully decorated cookie on a stick about the size of a donut. And so we were
Sounds
like,
delicious.
wow. Yeah, it was awesome. It tasted really good too. And so everybody at the Christmas party was like, this is so amazing. And so my husband and I are standing in the corner, like watching our son, our toddler, devour this cookie. And we noticed in the box that had been given, how it was presented to him, there was this little tiny brochure. And so we started going through the brochure, and it said, for franchise opportunities, call here. And this was 1998, and so we were young and we were like curious about this idea. And so a couple days later, we kept talking about this cookie and what a wonderful gift it was, and all the applications that we saw with it. My husband's an engineer, my background's in marketing. And so one of us got up the nerve to dial that number and inquire about this cookie, and that started our franchise journey. We bought our first location of a brand called Cookies by Design right before our second child was born. And so we had this 2-year-old, and I was pregnant with my daughter. And so nobody thought this was a good idea.
Yeah,
my
of
parents,
Right.
everybody was like, this is not a good time to do this, but we did it anyway. And so we had that brand, Cookies by Design. We went to ultimately 4 units of the brand.
And in what time frame?
Pretty quickly. We started with the one, and then we grew. I'm in the Philadelphia area, so there was a lot of open space there.
Yeah.
So I would say probably within the first 2 to 3 years, we went to 4 units. And as a part of being a Cookies by Design franchise owner, we were also members of the International Franchise Association, where we are today. And so at that time, the IFA would send its members a fax, if you can believe that, right? This is
What's one of those?
Yeah, like before email, before social media. And so one Friday afternoon, we got the fax from the IFA, and it said, there's an emerging brand called Just Between Friends. And at that time, that 2-year-old was now 11.
Right, okay.
And my daughter, who I was expecting, was 8. And so my husband said, hey, this sounds really interesting, because it spoke to a need that we had as parents, which was our kids were growing really fast, and we had all this stuff that they had outgrown or outloved, and it was an opportunity to buy and sell things for parents. And so we looked into the Just Between Friends opportunity, and I bought that location because our cookie...
In Philadelphia?
In Philadelphia,
right,
yeah.
Okay.
So our cookie business, although it was brick and mortar, it was very seasonal. So we had things like Valentine's Day and Christmas and Mother's Day. And so JBF, Just Between Friends, is also a seasonal type of model. And so it just fit beautifully into what we were already doing. We're totally dialed into franchising because we could take, something that we didn't know anything about and quickly become successful because we followed the model. And so we bought our first Just Between Friends franchise in 2008.
2008. Oh gosh, 2008.
So it's been a
Wow.
while. Started with one location, and I don't know, the magic number for us has always been 4. So we had 4.
Okay.
So 4 JBF locations, and did that for 15 years. And this is a very long answer to your question.
It's great.
But then in December of 2022, I had an opportunity to acquire the brand from the founder. So I moved from franchisee to franchisor, and my husband still owns and operates 2 of those JBF locations. So we're still very connected to the operator side of the business, but now my job is to lead and manage our franchise owners.
Which is phenomenal. I think the really interesting thing for me, I think, is when you start thinking about going from franchisee to franchisor, they're two very different businesses,
Very
aren't
different,
they? You know, so what made you decide to do that? Because it's a whole similar but very different set of skills that are required, really.
I didn't realize that at the time. I thought it would be more similar than different, but I had really gotten to a point in my leadership where I had scaled these businesses, you know, not only with Cookies by Design, but also with Just Between Friends. And I started to think, like, what's next? You know, what more can I do to contribute? And so, and by kind of that scalability for us, it looked like we had 3 of our 4 locations were in the top 10 of the company.
Wow.
We had number 1 and number 2. And so it was like, okay, you know, I'm a high achiever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what's more for me? And my dad used to always tell me that when you're the strongest person in your gym, it's time to look for a new gym.
Absolutely.
But
Wonderful advice.
I really like my gym, right?
Yeah.
I love what we do at Just Between Friends
Yeah.
because we help families to say yes to their growing children. And so just the mission is really important to me. And so I started to think about, like, how could I continue to serve and live the mission, but in a different capacity. And so I spoke to the founder, Shannon, who
Yes,
you know and
yeah.
has been on your podcast.
She was one of our first podcast guests, actually. Yeah.
And she's awesome. And I just said, you know, hey, and I had a good relationship with her because as her top franchisee, you know, we spoke regularly. And I just said, you know, if you're ever interested in selling the business, I'd be interested in talking to you. And I thought this was like a, you know, okay, that's nice to know, you know, someday.
Yeah.
And it actually started the ball rolling immediately. And so it took a while. It took about 18 months to fully consummate the deal, but we did it.
I mean, first of all, wow.
Yeah.
And second of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
know, I mean,
Thank you.
what an amazing journey. I think and I love the concept of changing your gym when you're the strongest person in there. That to me, it really resonates on all different levels there. So you've found yourself as a franchisor. What year was this now?
I'm sorry, say that again.
What year did you get in
So
as a franchisor?
December of 2022.
Okay, so
It's been 3 years.
Been 3 years. So December 2022. What was the age and stage of Just Between Friends at that point?
Yeah, so JBF, when I acquired the brand, would be considered a mature brand. We've been around for 25 years, 150 locations in 31 states, so pretty good footprint nationally. But I would describe it as really the company was at an inflection point because we grew quickly, like most emerging brands, and then kind of plateaued, right? Like, so we started to see that, you know, we weren't signing a lot of new franchise locations because we didn't have a huge budget for franchise development, and our organic leads had kind of started to peter out. But we still had so much opportunity because any community where there are kids, we have a chance. And so at that time, we really started to double down on what we do well, which is culture. So redefine what are our core values, what are our mission to make it really sticky. So that was our first big initiative. We also really started bringing up this escalator. All right.
We've got a backwards walking
There we
cameraman on
go.
an escalator. This is how we do it in London.
Yeah,
right?
this is awesome. So core values was big. We also introduced something, minimum royalty responsibility.
That's great.
Because our brand is seasonal, we have cash flow only a couple times a year, which means the Franchise Support Center only has cash flow a couple times a year. And so in order to support our franchise owners, we just needed to really kind of level up the professionalism of the company. So that was really where we started in 2023. And now 3 years into it, we're really starting to see the fruits of that. The company has grown 41% in the past 3 years.
Wow, 41%.
Same number of units, because as we've added, we've also pruned. But we're in a really good spot right now.
I mean, that is phenomenal. So one of the big things I'd love to understand from you is what sort of secret sauce was there, being a franchisee in the same system, to then becoming a franchisor? And that 41%, was that from new systems that you implemented? Was that from you kind of coming in and saying, well, actually, hold on a second, we need to prune poor quality franchisees? Or was that in the believability? Because actually you've done it yourself, you're a top performer, and so you already had people that bought into you.
All of the above,
Right.
Absolutely all of the above. So as far as the system, when I bought the company, one of the things that I was fortunate enough to inherit as a part of that was we were operating on EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, and that framework has been fundamentally transformative for JDF because we've got the right people in the right seats. We have departments, and the communication is so much better with our L10s and everything. So I would say, that was key. The culture, as I mentioned, just kind of redefining what our core values are, making that sticky. We took like really long sentences.
Just pause for a second. You're going to have a lot of people here. Are we okay here? Just if you just keep a line, maybe. Yeah.
That was funny. I was like,
right. Save him. Okay, cool. And go.
Okay, so
you're talking culture.
Yeah, so culture, making those core values sticky. And as you said, because I was a franchise owner in the brand and somebody who was performing at the highest level, I certainly had a lot of empathy for what it took to be a successful franchise owner in the brand. And I always kind of balance, empathy and authority, right? Like people respect the fact that I've done it, but I also had to really transition into a different role. That I was no longer the peer, I was the franchisor.
And so that's quite something
hard.
Actually.
That took a little bit of time, but I would say all of those things kind of came together. One of the best things that I think that I did to help to facilitate that transition is in that first year, 2023, I did a road show.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I went to 8 of our major markets and just had dinner and conversation and just talking about, where the company was going. And my job in the EOS model, I'm the visionary. It's, I always have to answer the question of where are we going? How we get there is up for grabs, but that's my job as just the chief repeating officer to constantly remind people of that.
I think that's super interesting. So for those of the I guess, or our listeners that don't know what EOS is, if you could just dig a little bit more into that, because I think that encompasses so many of the things you're talking about, with the right people in the right seats, the culture, the communication. And I think if we, if they are the reasons where this growth has come from, I'd love to kind of really understand that a little bit. Like, what is EOS? How has it actually helped? So what actionable things have happened in the last 3 years? Because you've obviously come in and made some serious changes. But over to you.
Well, EOS, it starts with it's the Entrepreneurial Operating System, which is basically a framework of you've got the right people in the right seats who get it, want it, and have the capacity to do it. And so we're looking at our role chart to make sure that we have leaders that lead, manage, and hold people accountable. And so it starts there with the leadership, and then that's departmentalized. And then within that, it's so simple, it's silly. There's a cadence of communication. The simplest things to do are the simplest things not to do, right? And so there's this cadence of communication where every single week our departments are meeting. It's called an L10.
Right.
And then that's happened in every department. Within each of those departments, the leaders have one-on-one meetings with each of their direct reports every single week. And so we're doing this consistently over time, which I think it's the compound effect that's really powerful with EOS. And then from a leadership perspective, you've got your 1-year goals, your 3-year picture, and then your 10-year vision. And so we're constantly looking at that. And we do that in the EOS model, it's quarterly. So you've got a 90-day sprint. And so each person in the company is responsible for rocks. So those are the big priorities that they're going to, if nothing else gets done this quarter, this is what we're going to do. And so our rocks are aligned to that 1-year goal picture and then our 3-year vision. So, it's really just how all the pieces work together.
Which is really cool. And what is one of the biggest things that have been hard to do in that time? Whether it be someone that you were close to that you thought, well, actually, the business has now kind of gone to a different stage, or something else? I wonder if you wouldn't mind sharing.
I think the hardest thing for me has been technology. Our company, that's really our product. Although the service that we provide is an opportunity for parents to buy and sell things, they're absolutely dependent on a proprietary technology platform that we have. And so when I acquired the company, because I was a franchisee, I knew the state of technology, which was not good. We were operating on really like antiquated systems, and we just needed to upgrade. And so we've been through this period of real instability because we've constantly had to be changing and iterating. And so I think that's been hard because franchise owners, they're expecting us and they're trusting us to be able to provide tech. I said to somebody this morning, like our goal is that tech is invisible. It just works. Like you shouldn't have to think about it. And so
it's a great way to put it.
Yeah, the past 3 years have been challenging because it has not been invisible. And so we're constantly working on that. We've built out the team, back to the EOS. We really realized that we needed to have a leader who gets it once it has capacity to do it, and then the amount of structure and support helping him, so we've really beefed up that team. So tech has been the most challenging part of that, and then it all breeds into trust and everything else.
That's very interesting. So, I mean, I think, so we at Walfinch, we've always kind of lived off EOS, but on the franchisor side, one of the big things we're doing at the moment is helping franchisees implement it.
Yes.
Do your franchisees use EOS?
Yes, they do. Not to the extreme as what I just described, because in our model, our franchise owners, because it's a seasonal model, they don't necessarily have year-round employees. So those weekly meetings and the quarterly offsites and things like that are not really relevant for their business, but the principles are there. So we encourage all of our franchise owners to have rocks. We go through at all of our community calls with our franchise owners on a monthly basis. We will red, yellow, green ourselves in our rocks, so they know at all times where we stand, like if this is on track or off track. So the language, which I believe the language creates the culture that we're trying to achieve, they understand the language and they're using it to the best of their ability in their franchise business.
And I think that is really one of the biggest things. Once you can tie language in, but also you can actually include franchisees in that journey. Because I think having been a franchisee, I came into franchising without knowing really anything about business. I'd run a business, but I didn't really run it very well.
That was me too. I didn't know anything.
The business kind of ran me, actually.
Exactly.
But having a system there that works is really important. And I think that management system, because I remember speaking to the manager of this really big department store years ago. So I think I was 22 years old and I had my first business. And I said, so how do you lead all these people? Like, he was a young guy, and I was like, what on earth? Why can you do it and I can't? I mean, I'm smart enough. What am I getting wrong here? But so much of it comes down to just having repeatable systems and creating that culture where it's okay to pick up the phone to a franchisee and just triage the rocks and so on. So thank you so much for sharing, Tracy. I think that's really, really interesting. So if we fast forward for the next 10 years, looking at that, I mean, what does JBF look like? Where does your journey take you?
Yeah, that's such a great question. Well, our goal is to be a household name. And so it's a big, hairy, audacious goal that's also a part of EOS. Because we believe that parents, if they have kids, we know that they grow fast and that we have an opportunity to help them save money and provide well for their children. And so that's really our goal, is to be in as many communities as possible. And we're getting there. It's one step at a time, one franchise owner at a time. But I think to your point, we have the right systems and structure in place because we know, and I'm sure every single guest you have will tell you, that the best franchise partners are those that are profitable and satisfied. And so we've really worked on that, is getting our average unit volume up. It's increased 101% in the past 2 years. So that's really key. By providing them with the growth necessary to grow their business. And so we believe when we do that, then that goal of helping more families say yes is absolutely attainable.
That is phenomenal. And I think as a product, just saying to somebody that is in that life stage at the moment. My eldest is 6, and
Okay.
I've got
You're
3,
right there.
6, 4,
You're my
and 1.
demographic.
Yeah, totally. And we're constantly looking at this. I'm like, there's all of this stuff at home. I just want it gone. But it's such an interesting thing that, and we've started getting into a bit of that. My wife and I, with just with all of the kids stuff. You think, well, all of the buggies and the cots and the this and the that. So I think it's a wonderful thing that you do, creating that market as well. So it's I wish you all of the success in the future, and thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure to walk with you this morning.
It's been a huge pleasure.
Yeah,
thank you so much. And thank you for tuning in to another episode of Walking with Walfinch. And I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did.